Hey, what is up guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Tokyo Xtreme Racer Early Access. Now, we're heading into part 2 of our playthrough here and we're going to go ahead and tackle our first full boss fight, as well as knock out, once again, another one of the team leaders. Now in episode 1, we just went through the tutorial, I showed you the basic premise of the game, and went ahead and took down my first team leader and first team in the form of the Subarus from Upbeat. So for this episode, we're going to go ahead and tackle the rest of the Challenger Racing team and also their team leader, and then we're going to take on the Rolling Guys, a brand new team full of AE86s, take on their team leader and get involved in our first ever boss race. So let's go ahead and get into it. So here we are, right where we left off. Now we're going to go ahead and just go straight into the course, but the first thing I want to do is actually show you the rest of the map. Now this becomes available the further we get into the game through the different chapters. Now I believe so far there's like 2 full chapters of the game available, and once we've completed this first one, we pretty much have access to the rest of the expressway. So let's go ahead and get into the night then. So first of all, we need to find our first opponent. I'm aiming to take on the rest of the Challenger Racing team. This way we can just knock them out pretty easily. We also need to go ahead and build up that bank balance, so I'm going to be aiming to tackle as many races in a row as possible and get as many wins in a row as possible. Now there is another racing team out here in the form of Rolling Guys, and it's actually going to be those guys we approach first before any of the other challengers, in the form of Rolling Guy number 2, who is driving this light blue Toyota Levin. So let's go ahead and challenge him as our first racer of the night. And as you can see, we're in pretty much equal machinery here. They're not typically too difficult. However, there's a couple of the Rolling Guys that will certainly be a little bit more upgraded than the car we're currently driving here. However, we do manage to get a decent overtake here. He's not too aggressive, so then we're going to cover that one off and try and pull ahead of him and start draining that life bar. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Now it's going to take what feels like an absolute eternity here, but we are maintaining that gap and also building it up pretty nicely here. We're already 130 plus yards up ahead, so there's pretty much no chance at this guy coming back at us. And as you can see, we're going to keep it nice and clean, and within 40 seconds we have our first win of the night, and that is Rolling Guy number 2 done and dusted. So next up, we're going to move up ahead, and this is actually going to be one of my favorite looking cars in the entire game. This is Rolling Guy number 4 in this beautiful bright green Toyota Levin. So we're going to challenge him. Now typically he is probably the weakest of the bunch that I've noticed. I've done a couple of kind of playthroughs so far of the game. This is actually my 3rd overall one, and again, in terms of the Rolling Guys, this guy is just the easiest of the bunch. He doesn't really put up much of a fight. However, he does probably have the best of the looking Rolling Guys AE86s. Now into the corner we go. We should be able to gain a decent amount of time here and just stretch out that lead, and as you can see, we are going to manage to do that. In the end, we're over 140 yards away, and we're going to go ahead and take this win just over 40 seconds. So there we go, that is 2 of the Rolling Guys done and dusted. Now something I do want to point out is that in this portion of the game you are locked into the C1 inner and outer loop. As you can see, after this chapter, the rest of the map will become available. That's available in early access. So at present we're just kind of stuck on the loop itself. There's not many opponents out, so overall again we're quite kind of locked in to this specific chapter, but again it will open up massively as soon as we've done these guys. So next up we're going to approach Rolling Guy number 3. Now for some reason we're just not getting any of the challenges to appear, which is incredibly frustrating, but we're going to go ahead and just try and knock out as many of the Rolling Guys as possible. That will actually spawn in their team leader, and then after we've defeated their team leader, a full boss race will ensue. So it is quite a strange team to tackle, to be honest, and there's not really too many other racing teams that are like that, where once you beat a team leader, all of a sudden a boss will then spawn in to tackle you. So it is really quite a unique set of races with these guys. So in terms of Rolling Guy number 3, we made short work of him. Again, the AI just very kind of all over the place through the corner, so that is one of the best places to actually go ahead and challenge them to a battle. So moving on then, as you can see, we're only going to have a single option here to take the left hand turn, as the rest of the expressway is completely locked off, and it's looking like, you know, with we've got a decent amount of gap until the next actual opponent. So I'm just going to go ahead and start grinding a few wins here. Up ahead we have Timid Challenger. Of course we've already defeated him, hence why he's highlighted in green. And this is of course the guy that would be in the introduction to the race. So we're just going to go ahead and just challenge him quite quickly, just to build up those kind of win streaks. Again, you do get bonuses in terms of your wins. So the way it kind of works is 5 wins will get you a bonus, then 10 wins in a row will get you a bonus, and then 20 will fully max that out. And as you can see, we're at 4 wins currently. Race number 5 of the night is going to be once again against a challenger here. Thankfully, we've actually found one in the form of Peaceful Challenger. As you can see, it's a level 1 racer, so they really shouldn't be too tough. So as you can see, this is a bright pink Mazda Roadster. Now with a name like Peaceful Challenger, I'm going to assume that they're not going to be that aggressive like some of the AI can be. And then also you're going to notice they made a huge mistake here. This does sometimes happen and gives you pretty much a guaranteed easy win. They wiped themselves out. Now of course this was the last of the Challenger racing team, and well, that now means only one more thing. The team leader will end up challenging us to a battle. As you can see, it is going to be this greeny blue Suzuki Swift in the form of Downhill Challenger. Now, especially in comparison to the rest of his team, he is incredibly quick. A lot of the challengers are, well, essentially the game's introduction racing team. They are incredibly easy to beat, but this guy certainly gave us a run for our money. So we're going to try and go ahead and take advantage of him through the corners. Again, the AI just very much all over the place. This at first does allow us to build up a bit of a gap. We are then going to go ahead and try the same here, going into this right-hander where he should realistically struggle. Again, a lot of the AI through the tighter corners will just be absolutely all over the place. We're going to try and keep it nice and clean. Our mediums are starting to kind of fade away at this point, so we don't have the highest grip level. However, we do get the car through there nice and cleanly, and we do maintain a decent enough gap that it is going to continue to drain that life bar. And in the end, well, we're going to make this win look a lot easier than it realistically should have been. We just managed to get him to challenge us at the correct time there. And then we're also going to be taken back to the parking area where he's going to go ahead and step out of his machinery. Thank you for earlier. I'm glad to have met someone as skilled as you. I'm Downhill Challenger. We usually race in the mountains near home, but we decided to tackle the expressway to test our skills. So whilst we're talking to Downhill Challenger, another car with flashy customization is going to appear. A young man with an otherworldly presence stepped out, and this is going to be Rich Looking Man. Hey, pardon my interruption, a match between a leader of a gutsy team that came all the way from Hakone to the Shuto Expressway, and the much talked about rookie was thrilling to watch. And he introduces himself as Roulette Guy number 1. Of course, this is going to be the team leader of the Roulette Guys. Now, just something to note, this is a completely separate team of AE86 drivers. They will go ahead and hang out in one of the parking areas that is right at the bottom of the map. This is not the Rolling Guy team, this is the Roulette Guy team, so they are completely separate, but they do share the same car as the Rolling Guys that we're currently going ahead and battling. So this guy is just going to show himself up there, and then of course we do get this scene once again for completing another one of the smaller, I guess, episodes to a chapter. Now I'm going to use this as a bit of an intermission time where I'm going to go ahead and give you a few tips for the early game. Honestly, the game really isn't that difficult at this point. However, I do fully recommend taking out Team Upbeat first with these Subarus, of course the Challenger team, and then going ahead and tackling the Rolling Guys. And that is because not only do we end up with a team leader spawning, we also end up with a boss race almost instantly after. And that boss is incredibly quick in comparison to anything else you've tackled. So I fully recommend getting your battle points up at this point of the game by wiping out the Challengers and Team Upbeat, going ahead and spending some perks. So things like maybe attack and defense, just so you've got that extra life, even some performance pots if you want to. And at that point in time, you should be all good to actually tackle that first boss fight. So just be aware that if you go ahead and take the Rolling Guys on first, you might end up in a bit of trouble. So we do have another bad name here. We have on-time worker. So we're just going to go ahead and change our name to that. So of course, at this point in time, I'm going to go ahead and just put a few more perk levels on. Now the main ones I'm going to be looking at is kind of attack and defense. That works as a sort of overall driver level. So we do have those. In terms of skills, you know, some of those can be quite useful. Now the perk ones, they work as, you know, something else entirely differently. I believe those are the ones that kind of sit there doing stuff in the background for you. It could be more money, you know, things like that. Machine is, of course, for the actual cars themselves. And then we do have the tuning parts, which is, of course, unlocking more tuning parts. However, as you go through this part of the game, some of it is going to be pretty much, you know, locked off. So just be aware that you can't go ahead and just start purchasing the entire list, because it does lock it off from chapter to chapter. So we also have some new objectives. So of course, we've got to go ahead and defeat the team rolling guy. We also have Crimson Boy, who's cruising around. He's one of the bosses, and the same with Eternal Polaris. Those guys are going to be way too quick at present, so I'm not going to go ahead and take them on. However, I am going to attempt here to finish up the rolling guy team. Now we only have one of the cruisers left. That is rolling guy number 5, as you can see, driving this, you know, very bright red AE86. So here we go. We've challenged him to a battle. Thankfully, we are spawning straight in on a corner. However, he's then going to give us a little nudge and cover this one off. So the only thing I can think here is, well, it's quite tight through this section, so I'm just going to drain his life in the way that I know how to do. And that is just sit on his rear bumper and nudge him until it gets to the part where it is fully maxed out. We can only drain off a certain portion of his kind of bar until it'll actually, you know, kind of max out at that point, and then we have to get ahead of him to take the rest of it off. So again, he's just got this covered off. We're kind of, you know, stuck on the car itself, but we're eventually going to get that run around the outside and get that one covered off as we jump just to the left of the traffic there, and finally manage to build up the rest of the lead. And as you can see, the rest of his stamina is going to be completely taken away, and that gives us our final win of rolling guys. And straight away, well, you know what happens here. It is team leader time. This is going to be rolling guy number 1. He is, of course, the team leader of the rolling guys. However, we aren't going to be quite finished with these guys just yet after we've beat the team leader. Now, this guy does actually have the fastest of these AE86s on paper. It's supposed to be even faster than the boss battle that is going to spawn in next. Now, as you can see, he does start pulling ahead, but for some reason he's going to completely, absolutely wobble all over the place and, you know, kind of allow us through at this point. So we do manage to go around the outside and get that position covered off. And then from there, we do manage to build up a lead. We seem to have much more top end than him for some reason, and we're eventually going to knock out the rolling guy team. And that's going to once again put us in another cutscene. However, we are then going to be introduced to our first full boss fight of the game. These guys are typically much quicker than any of the team leaders, and you really want to be approaching these guys with caution. They are incredibly quick, very, very quick, to the point where some of them will almost feel unbeatable very early on in the game. Now, in terms of this cutscene right here, they're just going ahead and just saying how, you know, good we are, blah, 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 and then we're going to go ahead and end up being tackled by Rolling Master, and it's going to be straight away. So as soon as that chapter has done and dusted, we're then going to spawn ourselves back in, and as you can see, this guy is then going to appear. This is Rolling Master, the guy that the rolling guys were going ahead and talking about. Now, in terms of this guy, he's basically the leader of the rolling guys. He's basically the best of the bunch. That's kind of what they were hinting at. Now, in terms of this guy right here, on paper, he isn't actually the fastest of the rolling guys for some reason. I'm not quite sure. His car is on paper slower than the team leader. However, that means nothing. This guy is just absolutely rapid in comparison. So we're going to go ahead and tackle him to a race here. I do recommend getting him straight out of the way and done with as soon as you've taken on the rolling guys. That is because there is a few more races here that are going to be even quicker than this guy. So as you can see, he is going to pull on us almost instantly. It is ridiculous how fast some of these boss cars are. Some of them in the early game, you will go ahead and try and tackle to a race, and they will just completely disappear into the distance. However, when it came to Rolling Master, as you can see, the guy did have a bit of a wobble, and that allows us to sneak through around the outside and get that move done and dusted. Now at this point, we're going to try and drag him through the rest of the corners where he seems to be losing a lot of stability, and hopefully continue to build up our lead. And as you can see through this part here, we're just going to keep it nice and steady whilst he absolutely wobbles all over the place and loses more ground, and eventually we're going to be able to go ahead and drain that stamina bar. And well, there we go, we get a nice little prize boost of 500,000 credit points. So once again, we're going to be put through another dialogue where Rolling Guy number 1 is going to show back up, as well as Rolling Master. As you can see, he's fully kitted out in full racing gear. I can just imagine him sat in that car right now in the full race suit and helmet as we went ahead and battled him. They're basically saying that they might have just witnessed the birth of a new legend. I mean, at least at present, I hardly doubt that, as yeah, we have a few harder races to go ahead and tackle soon. Now, as you can see, we've got a couple more objectives here to finish up this chapter. That is defeating Crimson Boy and Eternal Polaris. Now, both of these are classed as, I believe, Wanderers, and they are once again a type of boss battle. So in terms of these two, they're going to be incredibly quick in comparison to anything else that we've gone ahead and battled so far. And the first of these two that we're going to go ahead and approach is this Subaru right here in the form of Crimson Boy. Now, this is not going to be the only time he shows up. He will show up a little bit later on in the form of a double battle. However, I will save that for another episode, and it's quite a lot further into the game. So as you can see, this guy is the highest level that we've tackled so far. He is a level 4 driver, and well, at the kind of spec that we have right now, he is going to be incredibly quick. So as you can see, straight away he's going to leave us in his dust, and at this point we're going to try and do anything we can to go ahead and actually take a win here. And well, he is just going to disappear into the distance. However, he then makes a huge mistake, allowing us to just slip through past him, and at this point we're going to take him through the corners, keep it nice and stable, and begin to drain his stamina bar. So at this point we're absolutely holding on for dear life, hoping that he doesn't catch us on the straight. Thankfully he won't, and we'll actually go ahead and defeat this boss battle pretty easy. Thankfully, all the little corners there come in to our advantage, and once again we're going to take away a lot of credit points from that one. Now for this chapter, that just leaves one more car to go ahead and tackle, and as you can see, this is going to be absolutely the fastest one that we've come up against so far. This is an R33 Skyline GTR in the form of Eternal Polaris, and this once again won't be the only time they actually show up. They'll come back later on even quicker. And as you can see, we're going to go ahead, flash our lights, and begin this final boss battle. And well, it's going to go pretty well, actually, surprisingly enough. For some reason, they do keep this AI incredibly slow at this point in the game, to the point where they won't just disappear. Even though, let's be honest, they really should. And as you can see, they do have the legs on us. However, for some reason, they are just going to slow down insanely for this right-hander, and that allows us to close up the gap. This car will return later on in a much more aggressive form, even though, as you can see, they are being incredibly aggressive so far. But we do manage to slip on through, and then of course we have this left-hander here. Now, one thing I did notice, this was the only AI so far that did manage to hold out through the corners. As you can see, actually taking the gap away from us, and that high top speed is going to begin to kick in. So here we go. We are going to go through this final section here, and we do start managing to get that reversal attack on them. We do get awarded credits for that. Basically, it means that they've drained our stamina, and then we've managed to do it back. And at this point, we're not going to hold back. We're going to be as quick as we possibly can to try and get this done and dusted. And in the end, we eventually do. And that is pretty much going to sum up this chapter of the game. Now, of course, we're then going to once again be put into dialogue. However, we have actually unlocked something else in the form of Legendary Tuner. Now, this guy ends up appearing at different parking areas. It seems to be typically random where he'll actually be. He is highlighted by a wrench icon, which will be above one of the parking areas on any given night. Once you go ahead and go there, he can then actually give you an increase in your performance for that night only. However, it does cost you, but especially in the early game, I fully recommend doing that. That is because it allows you to beat some of the much quicker opponents, and from here in out they are going to get much quicker. We'll see a lot of cars that are typically around the performance of that boss we've just taken on there, Eternal Polaris. So far in our journey, we've gone ahead and tackled Team Upbeat in the form of a group of Subarus. We've taken down the Rolling Guys, a Rolling Master, Eternal Polaris, and of course Crimson Boy, as well as knocking out the introductory team in the form of the challengers. And with that, I would say comes to end the full introduction to the game. I would say this point in the game is to really kind of get you used to the driving, get you used to how the map works, you know, introduce boss battles, team leaders, of course how the actual, you know, the teams themselves work, and from there on out you're basically given, you know, full freedom, I guess, to go ahead and just tackle the rest of the game as you do so wish. So it's going to get much more difficult from here, and we're also going to find that it's going to become a much more open game. So really these first 2 episodes is just basically a full introduction to how everything works. So that's going to be it for episode 2 of our Tokyo Xtreme Racer playthrough. Episode 3 will probably be in a few days time, where the game is going to become much more open and, well, much more difficult from there. We're going to try and save up for another brand new car and try and get a little bit quicker on these streets of Tokyo. I want to give a huge thank you to all of my channel members on screen now, and thank you for their continued support, as well as all of you guys who watched this video. I'll see you in the next one. Take care guys. Peace.